To my clients, I was just the landscaper. To my boss, Pam, I was just cheap labor. Then I dug up 23 GPS trackers buried under her prized topiaries. My hands are already dirty by 6 a.m., the way they should be. 5 years at Verdant Security Landscaping, and I still get here before the dew burns off. Eleanor Whitman's estate stretches out in front of me like a green cathedral, every hedge trimmed to mathematical precision, every flower bed arranged like it was designed by architects instead of nature. I kneel beside the Japanese maple topiary, the one that costs more than my truck. The irrigation gauge reads normal, but Eleanor's groundskeeper mentioned pressure drops in Zone 7 yesterday. That's my department. Senior landscaper Wayne Hall, the guy who keeps the rich folks' gardens looking like magazine covers. The metal detector hums against my shoulder as I unpack it from the truck. Standard procedure before any excavation. Can't afford to nick a gas line or fiber optic cable on a $4 million property. The morning air smells like wet earth and that expensive organic fertilizer Eleanor insists on. $40 a bag, but it makes the soil composition perfect for her prized specimens. Another day in paradise, I mutter, adjusting the detector's sensitivity. The familiar weight feels good in my hands. This old Garrett has found everything from sprinkler heads to forgotten garden tools over the years. I start my sweep pattern, methodical as always. Beep, 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 goes the detector, marking copper irrigation lines 18 inches down. The rhythm keeps time with my breathing as I map the underground network. This is the part of the job I actually love, reading the soil like a book, understanding the invisible infrastructure that keeps everything green and growing. The irrigation line follows the geometric perfection that wealthy clients demand. No random curves or shortcuts here. Everything runs in precise angles, engineered for efficiency and hidden from view. I've installed systems like this on a dozen estates, each one a testament to what money can buy when it meets genuine expertise. My weathered hands grip the detector's handle with practiced ease. 23 years in landscaping, starting as a kid who just needed work, and now I can tell you the pH balance of soil just by feeling it between my fingers. The Latin names of every plant on this property roll off my tongue like prayers. Acer palmatum bloodgood, Rhododendron ponticum, Buxus sempervirens. The detector's tone shifts suddenly, not the usual ping of copper piping, but something deeper, more substantial. I stop mid-stride, frowning at the display. The signal strength is all wrong for irrigation equipment. That's not right, I say to the empty garden, sweeping the area again. The reading doesn't change. Strong, consistent, and definitely metallic. I adjust the sensitivity settings I know by heart, but the anomaly persists. I mark the spot with orange spray paint and continue the sweep. 20 feet north, the same signal. Then again, forming a pattern that makes my stomach tighten with unease. This isn't random. It's a grid, precise as a surveyor's map. What the hell is buried out here? The soil tells its story as I drive the shovel blade deep into the rich loam. My movements are economical, efficient. Years of precision excavation have taught me to read the Earth's layers like chapters in a book. This dirt has been disturbed recently, despite the mature topiary above. The compression patterns suggest heavy equipment access, which doesn't make sense for routine maintenance. 18 inches down, the blade strikes something hard and artificial. The metallic ring echoes wrong in the morning stillness. I set the shovel aside and kneel, brushing dirt away with my fingers. The soil is perfect here. Nitrogen-rich, well-draining, the kind of composition that costs serious money to create. But what emerges isn't irrigation equipment. The device comes free with a sucking sound, mud clean to its weatherproof housing. It's roughly the size of a smartphone, but built like tank armor. Military-grade seals, antenna attachments, warning labels that make my hands shake as I turn it over. This isn't supposed to be here, I whisper, glancing around the empty estate grounds. The morning shadows seem longer suddenly, the familiar landscape taking on an unfamiliar edge. I pull out my phone and start photographing. The burial site, the device itself, the precise depth of installation. My landscaper's eye automatically notes the details. Soil compaction, root displacement, the surgical precision of the excavation. Whoever buried this knew exactly what they were doing. The serial numbers are clearly visible. Sentinel Pro G PS 47291. Below that, smaller text warns about federal regulations and unauthorized use. This isn't some cheap tracking device. It's professional-grade equipment that costs more than I make in a month. Following the grid pattern my metal detector revealed, I moved to the next orange mark. The shovel bites into earth that's been disturbed with the same surgical precision. Another device, identical to the first, then a third, each one buried exactly 18 inches deep beneath the estate's most valuable landscaping features. My documentation grows with each discovery. GPS coordinates, burial depths, soil conditions, all recorded with the obsessive detail that made me Verdant Security's senior landscaper. The devices are too expensive, too sophisticated for any legitimate landscaping purpose I can imagine. Cold sweat beads on my forehead despite the cool morning air. Someone has turned Eleanor Whitman's prized garden into a surveillance grid, and they did it with the kind of precision that only comes from professional installation. I sit back on my heels, staring at the 3 devices lined up on my tarp like evidence in a crime scene. The implications are starting to crystallize in my mind, each one worse than the last. Who authorized this? Who has access to military-grade GPS equipment? And why the hell are they buried in my irrigation zones? My phone buzzes against my hip, the vibration cutting through my racing thoughts like a blade. Pam's name flashes on the screen, her text message appearing with timing that makes my skin crawl. Running late to Whitman's site. Everything normal? I stare at the words, then at the 3 GPS devices lined up on my tarp like smoking guns. Pam Taylor never checks on routine maintenance calls. In 5 years, she's trusted me to handle irrigation work without supervision, without questions. But now, with military-grade surveillance equipment literally in my hands, she's suddenly concerned about my progress? My thumb hovers over the keyboard. The morning air feels thinner, the estate's isolation more pronounced. Even the birds seem quieter, as if nature itself is holding its breath. Yeah, all normal, I type back, each letter a small betrayal of everything I thought I knew about my job, my boss, my life. The lie tastes bitter as I hit send. Professional paranoia wars with 5 years of trust. But the evidence doesn't lie. Soil doesn't lie. And these devices buried 18 inches deep in perfect grid patterns aren't here by accident. I'm sliding my phone back into my pocket when the first GPS unit suddenly pulses green, a single heartbeat of electronic life that makes my blood freeze in my veins. Then another, then the third. All 3 devices blinking in synchronized rhythm, their LED indicators casting tiny emerald shadows on my work tarp. Jesus Christ, I whisper, scrambling backward from the devices like they're venomous snakes. They're not dormant. They're not broken equipment waiting for disposal. These are active transmitters, broadcasting data in real time to unknown recipients. My landscaper's mind races through the implications, each one worse than the last. Someone has been tracking Eleanor Whitman's movements, her patterns, her routines. A woman worth millions, surveilled through equipment buried during routine landscaping upgrades. The familiar estate grounds now feel like a crime scene. Every shadow potentially hiding more secrets. Every perfectly manicured hedge suddenly suspect. I pull out my tablet with shaking hands, connecting to the estate's guest Wi-Fi network that Eleanor provides for service contractors. The password is still Rosebud2019, a detail that now feels sickeningly naive, given what I've discovered. The search results for Sentinel Pro GPS 47291 make my stomach drop through the perfectly composted soil beneath my boots. Military-grade surveillance equipment, covert asset tracking systems, price range $3,400 to $5,800 per unit, depending on cellular capabilities and encryption protocols. These aren't consumer electronics. They're professional intelligence tools, the kind used by government agencies and private military contractors, the kind that require federal licensing and background checks, the kind that definitely shouldn't be buried in a retired investment banker's prize garden. I scroll through technical specifications that read like something from a spy thriller. Real-time GPS positioning accurate to within 3 meters. Cellular data transmission with encrypted protocols. Battery life of 18 months in standby mode. Motion-activated recording capabilities. The morning sun feels harsh now, exposing me in the open garden as the full scope of what I've stumbled into crystallizes. This isn't simple landscaping fraud or equipment theft. This is systematic surveillance of wealthy clients using Verdant Security's legitimate access as cover. A black sedan turns into the estate's circular drive, its engine purring with expensive precision. My heart hammers against my ribs as I recognize Pam Taylor's vehicle, arriving 40 minutes early for a maintenance call that should have taken me 3 hours to complete. I move fast, muscle memory taking over as I rebury 3 of the 4 GPS units. My hands shake as I replace soil and mulch, trying to restore the surgical precision of the original installations. The 4th device goes into my tool bag, wrapped in a clean shop rag like evidence in a crime scene, which, I'm starting to realize, is exactly what this is. Pam's stride across the manicured lawn is purposeful, predatory. Her usual casual demeanor has been replaced by something more focused, more dangerous. I arrange my irrigation tools to suggest normal maintenance work, forcing my breathing to slow as she approaches. "Morning, Wayne," she calls out with her trademark smile, but I notice details I've never paid attention to before. The expensive Rolex Submariner on her wrist, retail price around 12 grand, way beyond her landscaping salary. The way her eyes immediately scan my work area rather than meeting mine first, cataloging disturbed soil and tool placement with professional assessment. "Find anything interesting in the soil today?" she asks with forced casualness, her gaze lingering on the disturbed earth around the Japanese maple where I discovered the first device. The weight of the hidden GPS unit in my tool bag feels like carrying a live grenade. "Just the usual root damage," I lie, every word carefully measured. "Irrigation line needed some adjustment where the maple's been growing." She nods, but her phone buzzes insistently against her hip. Text messages that she checks with quick, furtive glances, her fingers moving across the screen with practiced efficiency. Corporate communications don't usually require that kind of urgency on a Tuesday morning maintenance call. "Eleanor mention any concerns about the security upgrades?" Pam asks, kneeling to examine my work with unusual thoroughness. Her manicured fingers probe the soil I've just replaced, testing compaction and moisture levels with surprising expertise. Security upgrades. The phrase hits me like a physical blow. "No," I manage, watching her inspect the exact spot where a GPS device pulses 3 feet below her hands. "She seemed happy with everything when I talked to her last week." Pam's phone buzzes again. Then again, multiple messages flooding in while she crouches over what amounts to a surveillance installation site. The GPS unit in my tool bag seems to pulse with accusatory weight as the scope of what I've discovered becomes impossible to ignore. Someone has been systematically surveilling Eleanor Whitman and possibly dozens of other wealthy clients, using Verdant Security's legitimate landscaping access as the perfect cover, burying military-grade tracking equipment in soil I've personally maintained and improved over 5 years of dedicated work. The morning that started with routine maintenance has become something else entirely, the first thread in unraveling a conspiracy that reaches far beyond soil and irrigation lines. As Pam rises from her inspection, brushing dirt from her hands with satisfied efficiency, I realize I'm looking at my boss with completely new eyes. The GPS units buried around us continue their silent electronic heartbeat, transmitting data to unknown recipients while we stand in Eleanor Whitman's perfect garden, pretending everything is normal. I stared at the GPS tracker in my palm, its red LED pulsing every 3 seconds like a digital heartbeat. The November morning air carried the scent of wet mulch and dying leaves as I pulled out my phone with shaking fingers. Marcus Chen answered on the second ring. "Marcus, I need your electronics expertise," I said, keeping my voice low even though Pam had left 20 minutes ago. "Found something buried in the irrigation system that's way beyond landscaping equipment." "What kind of something?" His voice sharpened immediately. 5 years in Army Reserve together taught him to recognize when I was rattled. "Military-grade GPS tracker. Professional installation. Someone's been watching Mrs. Whitman." The words felt strange coming out of my mouth. "Can you get over here? I need to know what the hell I'm looking at." "Give me 40 minutes." The estate grounds felt different now. Every shadow between the boxwood hedges could hide another device. I walked the perimeter, my trained eye noting disturbances in the soil that I dismissed before as settling. 3 small depressions near the fountain, a patch of slightly different grass texture by the gazebo. My methodical mind raced through possibilities, but the military specifications suggested this conspiracy ran deeper than simple corporate theft. I should have seen it sooner. 23 years working soil, and I'd missed a surveillance network buried right under my hands. Marcus arrived in his black pickup, carrying the same tactical case I remembered from our deployment training. His graying hair was shorter now, but his movements still had that precise military economy. "Show me what you found," he said, his expression serious as stone. I led him to the excavation site near the irrigation main, pointing out the precise geometric placement. This isn't random installation. Someone mapped these locations with surveyor accuracy. The morning sun caught the metallic components of the reburied devices, their positions forming perfect triangulation points. Marcus knelt beside the hole, photographing the GPS unit from multiple angles. His trained eye noted details I'd missed: antenna orientation, weatherproofing quality, installation depth. Whoever did this knows both electronics and landscaping. These units are positioned to avoid root systems while maintaining clear satellite reception. "That's what's bothering me," I said, watching him work. "Only someone with landscaping access could have done this without detection." Marcus opened his equipment case, revealing a handheld signal detector and spectrum analyzer that looked like something from a spy movie. "If this thing's transmitting, we'll find its frequency." He powered up the devices, their screens flickering to life with scrolling data. The detector immediately chirped. "Strong signal, close range." I watched the digital readouts climb as Marcus swept the antenna across the excavated area, the beeping growing more rapid. "Signal strength suggests there's a whole network here," he muttered, adjusting frequency bands. "These aren't standalone units. They're part of a coordinated system." The estate's manicured silence felt oppressive now, broken only by electronic beeps that revealed the hidden surveillance web. Mrs. Whitman's prize roses swayed in the breeze, innocent and beautiful, while digital spies lurked 18 inches beneath their roots. "Follow me," Marcus said, watching his detector's display. "Let's map this network." Following the signal detector's guidance, we discovered 3 more GPS units buried in perfect triangulation around Eleanor Whitman's prize rose garden. Each device sat exactly 18 inches deep, positioned with surveyor precision that made my skin crawl. "Whoever installed these knows soil composition," I observed, kneeling beside the fresh excavation. "They're below frost line, but above the irrigation pipes. Takes years of experience to read soil layers this accurately." Marcus documented each location with GPS coordinates on his tablet. "This is professional-grade surveillance, not some amateur operation. Look at the spacing. Perfect geometric distribution for maximum coverage." I studied the pattern, my landscaper's eye recognizing the mathematical precision. These positions cover every approach to the house: front gate, service entrance, garden paths. Someone could track Mrs. Whitman's exact movements within 5 feet. "The question is, why?" Marcus said, carefully reburying the devices to avoid detection. "What's so important about a retired investment banker's daily routine? The roses seem to mock us with their innocent beauty, concealing digital espionage beneath their carefully tended soil. I'd planted these bushes myself 2 seasons ago, never knowing I was providing cover for surveillance equipment." Marcus connected his laptop to the signal analyzer, running software that mapped the transmission patterns in real time. Green lines traced across his screen, showing data streams flowing from each buried device. "These things are communicating with something, probably uploading location data continuously," he explained, pointing to the scrolling readouts. "Look at these transmission spikes. They're not random. I studied the patterns, recognizing the timing intervals from months of maintenance visits. Mrs. Whitman leaves for her bridge club every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Look, the transmission activity jumps right before she moves." The data correlation was unmistakable. The surveillance system tracked her movements with military precision, probably cross-referencing with the estate's smart home sensors for additional intelligence. Someone was building a detailed profile of her daily habits. "This is predictive tracking," Marcus said grimly. "Whoever's receiving this data knows exactly when she's vulnerable, when the house is empty, when she's following routine patterns." My hands clenched into fists. Whitman trusted me with her property, her security, and someone had turned my landscaping work into a surveillance operation. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through work schedules with growing dread. I installed irrigation upgrades here 6 months ago, right when Pam Taylor started pushing those security landscaping contracts. My voice carried the weight of realization as pieces connected like irrigation pipes snapping into place. Marcus examined the GPS unit's housing again, noting the professional-grade weatherproofing and antenna design. Someone with both landscaping access and electronics knowledge planned this operation, he said. This isn't random corporate espionage. It's targeted surveillance of high-value individuals. The November wind rustled through the estate's mature oaks, their branches seeming to whisper secrets about the surveillance network hidden beneath my carefully maintained grounds. 23 years of honest work, and I'd been turned into an unwitting accomplice in digital stalking. How many other properties has this happened to? The question hung in the November air like morning frost on the estate's manicured hedges. Marcus's fingers flew across his keyboard, diving deeper into the cellular data streams. "Give me a minute," he muttered, pulling up carrier registration databases. "These SIM cards have to be registered to someone." I crouched beside the reburied GPS unit, my knees pressing into the damp soil that had hidden this surveillance network for months. The earth felt different now, contaminated by betrayal. Every irrigation line I'd installed, every sprinkler head I'd positioned, had been turned into cover for digital espionage. Marcus's laptop screen flickered with data tables and carrier information. "Got it. The SIM cards are registered to a commercial account." His voice carried a note of professional satisfaction. "Account holder is Taylor Security Solutions." The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. My hands went numb, still clutching the soil pH meter clipped to my belt. Taylor Security Solutions. Pam's company. My company. That can't be right, I whispered, leaning over his shoulder to stare at the screen. The registration details were crystal clear. Monthly cellular service for 12 GPS tracking devices, paid automatically from a business account I'd never seen. Marcus refreshed the data, double-checking his findings. The account was opened 8 months ago. Same time frame as when these installations started. He pointed to the service activation dates, each one corresponding to a high-end landscaping contract I remembered completing. My stomach twisted as the full scope hit me. Not only had someone used my landscaping work as cover for surveillance, they'd used my own company's name to register the tracking equipment. Every buried GPS device was technically owned by Taylor Security Solutions, making me an unwitting accomplice in this digital stalking operation. "Pam," I said, the name tasting bitter in my mouth. "She's been using the company account to fund this surveillance network." The estate's automatic sprinkler system activated around us, sending arcs of water across the perfectly maintained lawn. The sound that usually brought me peace now felt like mockery. All these systems I'd installed and maintained turned into tools for violating Mrs. Whitman's privacy. Marcus saved the cellular data to an encrypted drive, his military training showing in the methodical way he documented evidence. "This gives us a direct connection between the surveillance equipment and your company. But we need to understand the full scope before making any moves." My phone buzzed with a text message. "Mrs. Whitman. Notice some disturbed soil near the roses. Everything all right with the irrigation system?" "We left traces," I told Marcus, showing him the message. "She knows we were digging." We moved quickly, grabbing tools from my truck. I raked the excavated areas smooth, while Marcus helped replace the mulch around the rose bushes. My hands worked automatically, muscle memory from decades of landscaping taking over, while my mind reeled from the discovery. The estate's security cameras tracked our movements from discrete positions among the ornamental trees. How long had they been recording our investigation? Every gesture, every piece of equipment Marcus had used, potentially documented by the very surveillance system we were trying to expose. "The transmission patterns," Marcus said, pulling up another data visualization. "Look at these upload spikes. They correlate perfectly with Mrs. Whitman's departure and arrival times." I studied the green lines scrolling across the screen, recognizing the timing patterns from months of maintenance visits. Tuesday afternoons when she left for bridge club, Thursday mornings for her standing hair appointment, Saturday evenings when she attended charity galas. Someone's been tracking her movements for behavioral analysis, I realized. building profiles of when she's vulnerable, when the house is empty. The professional precision made my skin crawl. This wasn't random corporate espionage. It was targeted surveillance of a wealthy widow, her daily routines commoditized into sellable intelligence. Marcus connected additional monitoring equipment, scanning for other signals from the estate's smart home system. Security sensors, automated lighting, climate controls, all transmitting data that could be cross-referenced with the GPS tracking. The scope kept expanding. Mrs. Whitman's entire private life was being monitored and analyzed. Her wealthy lifestyle turned into data streams for unknown buyers. Every system I'd helped install or maintain had become part of a comprehensive surveillance network. The GPS data alone is valuable, Marcus explained, but combined with smart home telemetry, someone could predict her exact movements days in advance. My phone rang, Pam Taylor's name appearing on the screen. My blood turned to ice as I realized she might be tracking my location through the company GPS system in my work truck. Wayne, just checking on that irrigation emergency at the Whitman estate. Her voice carried its usual false concern. How's the repair going? Just finishing up, I lied, watching Marcus pack away his surveillance equipment. Should have water pressure restored within the hour. Good. Mrs. Whitman specifically requested you handle this personally. She values your attention to detail. The irony cut deep. Mrs. Whitman trusted me completely, while my own boss had turned that trust into a surveillance operation. After hanging up, Marcus showed me the complete cellular account information he'd extracted. Account holder, Taylor Security Solutions, billing address, the same office where I'd worked for 5 years, monthly charges for 12 active GPS tracking devices, each one buried beneath properties I'd landscaped with my own hands. The November wind carried the scent of dying leaves and winter's approach. 23 years of honest work, and I'd been turned into an unwitting accomplice in digital stalking. The soil beneath my boots felt unstable, as if the very ground had shifted beneath my understanding of right and wrong. How many other properties? I asked, dreading the answer. Marcus pulled up a map showing cellular tower triangulation data. Red dots marked active GPS transmissions across the city's most exclusive neighborhoods, at least 23 high-value locations, all registered to your company account. Marcus folded the surveillance map, red dots still glowing in my peripheral vision. 23 properties. 23 wealthy families whose every movement Pam had been tracking through my company's name. The weight of it pressed against my chest like wet soil. We need to move fast, Marcus said, packing his equipment. If she's monitoring the cellular traffic, she'll know someone accessed the GPS data. He handed me a small device. Looked like a garage door opener. Signal jammer, 30-foot radius. Use it when you confront her. I stared at the jammer, its black plastic warm from Marcus's pocket. You think she knows? Brother, she's been using military-grade surveillance for months. She's not stupid. Marcus shouldered his bag. Question is, how far will she go to protect this operation? The drive to Verdant security felt like moving through thick clay. Every red light gave me time to think about Pam's face when I'd lied about the irrigation work yesterday. How easily she'd believe me. Or pretended to. My truck's dashboard clock read 6:47 a.m. when I pulled into the company lot. Pam's black F-150 sat in her usual spot, engine still ticking from recent arrival. I noticed something I'd never seen before. A small antenna mounted behind her cab, barely visible unless you knew to look. Another piece of her surveillance network, hidden in plain sight. The office building squatted against the gray dawn, fluorescent lights already humming in Pam's corner office. Through the windows, I could see her silhouette hunched over multiple computer monitors. She'd been here for hours, probably watching data streams from all those red dots on Marcus's map. I grabbed the evidence bag from my passenger seat, the GPS tracker, soil samples, Marcus's technical analysis. The tracker's LED still pulsed its steady rhythm, transmitting to servers I couldn't trace. In 12 hours, I'd gone from thinking I worked for a landscaping company to discovering I was part of a digital stalking operation. 23 families, including Eleanor Whitman, who trusted me to tender roses while Pam sold her location data to the highest bidder. The office door's electronic lock beeped as my keycard opened it. Inside, the familiar smell of coffee and printer toner couldn't mask the tension hanging in the recycled air. Pam's office door stood open, her back to me as she typed rapidly on her keyboard. "You're early today," she said without turning around. Her fingers moved across the screen, minimizing windows faster than I could track. I caught a glimpse of a logo, Data Harvest Analytics, before it disappeared behind a spreadsheet. Found something interesting at the Whitman estate. I walked to her desk, placed the GPS tracker on her blotter. Its LED continued pulsing between us like a tiny heartbeat. Pam turned in her chair, her expression shifting from surprise to something more calculated. She picked up the device, turning it over in her hands like she'd never seen it before. "Interesting. Probably left by a previous contractor. We should report this to Eleanor Whitman immediately." I slid Marcus's technical analysis across her desk. Cellular logs, transmission frequencies, signal strength measurements, all the data that proved this wasn't some random piece of equipment. "The SIM card is registered to Taylor Security Solutions, your company, Pam." The office air conditioning hummed louder in the sudden silence. Pam's fingers drummed once against the desk, then stopped. Her corporate mask, the one she wore for clients and city inspectors, began to slip. "You don't understand the bigger picture here, Wayne." She leaned back in her chair, her voice taking on that maternal tone she'd used when training me 5 years ago. "These clients live in a different world. Threats we can't imagine. Sometimes protection requires unconventional methods." I felt the familiar pull of her authority, the instinct to defer to her experience. She'd hired me when no one else would, taught me the business side of landscaping, helped me build something stable after Rebecca left. "I've been keeping you out of this for your own good," Pam continued. "The less you know, the safer you are." But I shook my head, pulling out my phone to show the photos I'd taken. The geometric grid pattern where Marcus and I had found all 4 trackers. The precise measurements. The systematic placement that could only mean one thing. "This isn't protection, Pam. This is surveillance." I swiped through the images, watching her face change as the evidence mounted. 23 properties. $125,000 in payments from Data Harvest Analytics over 4 years. Marcus had helped me calculate those numbers, tracing the money flow through shell companies and data brokers. Every wealthy client we'd landscaped, every estate where I'd installed irrigation systems, every property where Pam had insisted on security upgrades. "You've been selling their location data," I said quietly. "When they travel, their routines, their vulnerabilities, using my work, my access, my reputation." Pam's maternal expression hardened into something colder, more calculating. The woman who'd mentored me disappeared, replaced by someone I'd never seen before. "You've been busy," she said softly. Pam stood slowly, her chair creaking against the silence. She walked to the window overlooking the equipment yard where Derek Santos was loading the morning truck, his movements efficient and unaware. The early sun cast long shadows across the gravel, and I could see the GPS antennas mounted on every company vehicle, suddenly sinister in the morning light. "You think you're protecting these people?" she asked without turning around. Her reflection in the glass looked older, harder than the woman who'd hired me 5 years ago. "Eleanor Whitman has more money than she can spend in 3 lifetimes. Vincent Ashford owns half the commercial district downtown." She turned back to face me, arms crossed over her pressed blazer. "They don't need your protection, Wayne. They need management. The word hit wrong, like soil that's been overwatered. Too slick, too processed. Data Harvest helps them optimize their security, their investments," Pam continued, her voice taking on that rehearsed quality I'd heard her use with difficult clients. "We're providing a service they can't get anywhere else. Predictive analytics based on real behavioral data." I could tell she'd told herself this story many times, polished it until it almost sounded reasonable. Almost. A service they didn't consent to. I stood up, my boots scraping against the concrete floor. "You buried surveillance equipment on their property without telling them. That's not protection, Pam. That's exploitation." Her laugh was sharp and bitter, nothing like the warm chuckle I remembered from our first meeting. "Consent? Wayne, these people hire us to access every corner of their estates. They give us their security codes, their schedules, their family routines." She moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that made my skin crawl. "We already have access to everything that matters. The only question is whether we're smart enough to profit from that access." Something shifted inside me. That final thread of loyalty I'd been holding on to for 5 years. It snapped clean. like a root system that's been stressed too long. I won't be part of this. I backed toward the door, but Pam's expression changed again. The corporate mask dropped completely, revealing something predatory underneath, something I'd never seen before, or maybe just never wanted to see. You already are part of it, Wayne. Her voice was calm now, deadly calm. You've been installing these systems for 4 years without knowing it. Every irrigation upgrade, every security landscaping enhancement. You helped me place half those trackers yourself. The words hit me like a physical blow. My chest tightened as I thought about all those careful installations, the geometric precision I'd been so proud of. The way Pam had always praised my attention to detail, my systematic approach to soil analysis and drainage patterns. She'd been using my skills against me, using my pride and craftsmanship to build her surveillance network. The clients trust you, Pam continued, moving to block my path to the door. Her shadow fell across the evidence I'd spread on her desk. Photos, technical specs, cellular logs. Eleanor Whitman specifically requested you for her estate work. Vincent Ashford pays a premium for your soil analysis because he knows you're thorough. My mouth went dry as I realized where this was heading. They see you as the honest, hard-working landscaper who would never betray their trust. Her smile was cold now, all pretense gone. If this comes out, who do you think they'll blame? The respected security contractor who's protected dozens of high-end estates? Or the employee who had direct access to everything? The trap, I could see it now, built around me over years of careful manipulation. Every compliment about my work, every raise, every client who'd requested me specifically, it had all been part of building my credibility so she could exploit it. I reached for the door handle, my palms slick with sweat, but Pam's next words froze me in place. I know about your visits to Marcus Chen's shop, Wayne. My hand stopped moving. The metal handle felt cold against my skin. I know about the soil samples you've been testing, the photos you've been taking. She pulled out her own phone, swiping to a familiar interface. GPS tracking software with a live map display. Company truck 7, your truck, has been transmitting your location for 5 years. I've watched every stop, every detour, every late-night meeting. The screen showed my route from yesterday, traced in red lines across the city. The path to Marcus Chen's electronics shop was highlighted, time-stamped down to the minute. Every turn, every stop, every moment I thought I was being careful. The room spun as the full scope of my exposure hit me. She'd been tracking me the entire time, watching my investigation unfold like some kind of chess game where only she could see the board. Every move I'd made, every piece of evidence I'd gathered, she'd known about it all. You can walk away now, Pam said quietly, her voice almost gentle again. Keep your job, keep your benefits, keep your reputation intact. Derek Santos is a good kid, but he'll never have your expertise. The clients will miss your attention to detail. She gestured toward the parking lot where my truck sat among the other company vehicles, its GPS antenna suddenly looking like a surveillance device instead of a navigation tool. Or you can try to fight this and discover just how deep the surveillance goes. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. The choice is yours, Wayne, but choose carefully. I know exactly where you'll go next. Wayne methodically arranges the GPS units on his workbench, their LED indicators still pulsing in the dim equipment shed light. The metallic casings catch the overhead bulb as he documents each serial number with his phone camera. Behind him, Pam shifts her weight from foot to foot, the clicking of her heels against concrete the only sound breaking the tension. Wayne, you need to stop this right now. Her voice carries that corporate authority she uses with clients, but there's something else underneath. Desperation bleeding through the professional mask. I keep photographing. Each flash illuminates another piece of evidence, another violation of trust. The shed smells of fertilizer and motor oil, but underneath lurks the acrid scent of exposed circuitry. My hands remain steady despite everything. 4 years. 4 years of installing these things without knowing what they were. 4 years of this, Pam. I set the phone down and meet her eyes. 4 years of selling our clients privacy while they trusted us to protect their property. She takes a step closer, her heels clicking against the concrete. You don't understand the bigger picture, Wayne. Data Harvest Analytics pays more in 1 quarter than this company makes in a year. Her voice shifts to that persuasive tone she uses with wealthy clients. but I can hear the cracks forming. We're providing a service, market intelligence, predictive analytics. I pick up another GPS unit, its weight solid in my palm. Military grade. Expensive. I understand enough. The device's LED pulses against my weathered skin. I understand you've been tracking Mrs. Whitman's movements, selling her location data for $125,000. The number hangs in the air between us like a guilty verdict. Pam's corporate mask finally slips completely. She lunges toward the workbench, her composure shattering. You're destroying everything we've built here. This company, these contracts. Do you know what you're throwing away? I'm not throwing anything away. I reach into my tool bag and produce the small electronic device Marcus gave me, a signal jammer designed to cut cellular communications. The military-grade equipment hums to life with a low electronic whine that fills the shed. I'm protecting our clients. One by one, the GPS unit's LED indicators flicker and die, their data streams severed. The synchronized pulsing that's been haunting me for weeks finally stops. The sudden silence from the devices feels profound, like cutting puppet strings that have been controlling all of us. You're destroying company property, Pam shouts, but her voice sounds hollow in the equipment shed. The fluorescent light above flickers, casting shifting shadows across the now dormant surveillance equipment. I continue the jamming sequence, watching each device go dark. These were never company property. They were violations. The shed door creaks as I push it open, morning light flooding in. I begin packing the GPS units into evidence bags, each one labeled with location and date of discovery. Pam watches helplessly as I document the serial numbers that will trace back to Data Harvest Analytics and whoever else was buying our clients' private information. The morning air carries the scent of fresh mulch from yesterday's deliveries, a stark contrast to the digital conspiracy being dismantled in this cramped shed. Somewhere in the distance, Derek's mower starts up, the normal sounds of honest landscaping work. The clients will never trust Verdant Security again, Pam says quietly, her voice hollow with defeat. She's standing in the doorway now, silhouetted against the morning light. I seal the final evidence bag, the plastic crinkling in my hands. They shouldn't. I shoulder my tool bag, feeling its familiar weight. They deserve better than being merchandise. 2 hours later, I'm sitting across from Eleanor Whitman in her estate's conservatory, the GPS evidence spread across her mahogany table between delicate orchids. Sunlight filters through the glass walls, illuminating the metallic devices that violated her privacy for months. The humid air carries the fragrance of exotic blooms, a peaceful contrast to the morning's confrontation. Mrs. Whitman's fingers trace the edge of one unit, her investment banker instincts calculating the breach's implications. You could have simply reported this to corporate, she observes, her voice measured but appreciative. My calloused hands rest on my knees as I meet her gaze. Corporate was the problem, ma'am. Sometimes you have to choose between the job and doing what's right. She nods slowly, understanding the weight of that choice. Her conservatory feels like a sanctuary, all this wealth and beauty, and someone was tracking her every movement through it. Eleanor's phone buzzes with an incoming call, Verdant Security's corporate number flashing on the screen. She glances at me before answering, putting the call on speaker without hesitation. Pam's voice, now professionally controlled again, fills the conservatory. Mrs. Whitman, I'm calling to inform you that Wayne Hall has been terminated for theft of company property in violation of his employment contract. The words hang in the humid air like poison. My jaw tightens, but I remain silent. This was expected. Mrs. Whitman's eyes narrow with the calculating look that built her investment fortune. I see, she replies coolly. And what exactly did Mr. Hall steal? The question carries the weight of someone accustomed to exposing corporate lies. A pause stretches across the connection, filled only by the soft hum of the conservatory's climate control. When Pam speaks again, her corporate confidence is cracked. Security equipment that was part of our enhanced monitoring services. Mrs. Whitman's laugh carries the sharp edge of someone who's dismantled weak arguments in boardrooms for decades. Enhanced monitoring services that I never authorized, never requested, and certainly never paid for. She picks up one of the GPS units, its weight solid in her manicured hands. This device was buried 18 inches deep in my rose garden, Mr. Hall tells me. Hardly standard security protocol. I watch Pam's voice stumble through the speaker, each word digging her deeper. Mrs. Whitman, I think there's been a misunderstanding about the scope of our... No misunderstanding. Mrs. Whitman's tone could freeze water. What I understand is that my landscaper discovered unauthorized surveillance equipment on my property. And when he brought it to my attention, you fired him. She sets the GPS unit down with deliberate precision. That tells me everything I need to know about Verdant Security's priorities. The call ends with a sharp click. Mrs. Whitman sets her phone beside the evidence, the conservatory falling quiet except for the gentle whisper of air circulation, maintaining perfect growing conditions for her orchids. I start gathering the GPS units, assuming my business here is finished. Leave those, she says firmly, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to making million-dollar decisions. I'll be contacting my attorney about privacy violations and unauthorized surveillance. She turns to face me directly, her expression softening from corporate steel to genuine appreciation. As for you, Mr. Hall, I believe we need to discuss your future employment arrangements. The afternoon light shifts through the glass walls, casting rainbow patterns across the mahogany table where the evidence sits. I feel the weight of possibilities settling over me, like morning dew on fresh soil. An hour later, Vincent Ashford's voice crackles through Mrs. Whitman's speakerphone, tight with controlled anger. GPS tracking devices? On my property? Without my knowledge or consent? Mrs. Whitman methodically explains the evidence spread before us, her investment background making her a natural prosecutor. Each GPS unit becomes Exhibit A in a case that's building itself. Mr. Hall risked his employment to expose this violation, she emphasizes, glancing at me with obvious respect. While his employer was profiting from selling our private information. Jesus Christ. Vincent's voice carries the outrage of someone who values his privacy above almost everything else. How many properties are we talking about? I lean forward, my knowledge of Verdant's client list suddenly valuable. 23 that I know of, sir. All high-end estates where we've done security landscaping in the past 4 years. The conversation shifts to legal action and client protection, but my attention drifts to the orchids surrounding us. Delicate flowers that thrive with honest care, not corporate manipulation. The contrast isn't lost on me. Catherine Brennan from Hillcrest Gardens joins the next conference call, her voice sharp with the precision of someone accustomed to managing complex estates. If they've been tracking my movements, selling my location data to God knows who, her words trail off as the implications sink in. Mrs. Whitman's conservatory becomes an impromptu war room as 3 wealthy clients coordinate their response to corporate betrayal. I sit quietly, still processing my termination, but increasingly aware that these clients value my integrity over Verdant Security's corporate structure. The GPS units on the table represent more than surveillance equipment now. They're evidence of trust violated and honesty rewarded. The weight of that realization settles in my chest like good soil accepting water. We'll need independent landscaping services, Mrs. Whitman states, her eyes finding mine. Someone we can actually trust. The following Tuesday morning finds me loading my personal tools into my pickup truck. The Verdant Security logo no longer my responsibility. The company parking lot feels different without the weight of corporate loyalty. Lighter somehow, despite my uncertain future. My phone buzzes with a text from Mrs. Whitman. Contract ready for review. Groundskeeper position with equity consideration. I read the message twice, the words reshaping my understanding of consequence and reward. The autumn air carries the scent of changing seasons, of transitions both natural and professional. I start the engine, no longer driving to corporate assignments, but towards something I built with my own hands and choices. The Whitman estate office overlooks the gardens where I first discovered the GPS conspiracy, the view now symbolizing triumph over deception rather than violation of trust. Mrs. Whitman slides the contract across her desk, the legal document formalizing what Honor had already established. 20% equity in Whitman Estate Management, she explains, her voice carrying the satisfaction of a sound investment. Your integrity is worth more than Verdant Security's entire surveillance operation. My weathered hands accept the papers, feeling their weight. Real partnership, not hollow corporate promises. Outside the window, the topiary gardens await honest care, their geometric precision no longer hiding digital betrayal, but showcasing the beauty of authentic craftsmanship. I think about Pam, probably scrambling to explain the client exodus to her corporate bosses, about the GPS units that will become evidence in lawsuits that could shut down Verton's security entirely, about the soil that never lies, even when the people working it do. The other clients want to discuss similar arrangements, Mrs. Whitman adds, watching my expression. Independent contractors they can trust, rather than corporate employees with divided loyalties. I nod, understanding the weight of that trust. It's heavier than any tool in my bag, more valuable than any corporate salary. The morning light streams through her office windows, illuminating possibilities I never imagined when I first buried my hands in her estate's soil. The contract feels solid in my hands, real,